dear Dolly, Polly, shut your eyes. Lie still, lie silent, utter no cries as the witcher.
7 men murdered, shot at point-blank range. The hunt for a female serial killer in Florida between 1989 and 1991 has grabbed national headlines nationwide. And all to catch this woman. She's Aileen Wuornos, known as the Monster. Aileen Wuornos was born on the leap year of February 29, 1956, in Troy, Michigan, to teen parents Diane Wuornos and Leo Dale Pittman. She never knew her father because he was in jail at the time of her birth for a conviction of pedophilia, and at 4 years old was abandoned by her mother, leaving her in the care of her grandparents, which honestly made Aileen's life even worse. Her childhood would be spent with her being abused a lot, physically, mentally, and most of all, sexually. According to the statements made by Aileen, her grandfather would beat her, then sexually molest her as she was growing up. This abuse, of course, made Aileen a hypersexual. By age 11, Aileen began exchanging sexual activities for the likes of food, drugs, and cigarettes. And besides being molested by her grandfather, Aileen was also forced in engaging in incest with her brother. At age 13, after being raped by her grandfather and an accomplice of his, according to her statements, Aileen became pregnant and gave birth to a baby boy 9 months later, which was put up for adoption. A few months later, her grandmother died of liver failure. When Aileen turned 15, her grandfather finally kicked her out of the house, and she ended up living in the woods, where she supported herself the only way she knew: prostituting. Aileen Wuornos' life after that would be nothing more than one where she was constantly in trouble. On May 27, 1974, she was arrested in Jefferson County, Colorado for a DUI while firing a .22 caliber pistol from a moving vehicle. On July 14, 1976, she was arrested for disturbing the peace and assault in Antrim County, Michigan, after throwing a cue ball at a bartender's head. August of 1976, she received a $105 fine for drunk driving. May 20th, 1981, she was arrested in Edgewater, Florida for armed robbery, where she spent over a year in jail. May 1st, 1984, she was arrested for forgery in Key West. January 4th, 1986, she was arrested in Miami for grand theft auto, resisting arrest, and obstruction of justice. And the list goes on and on. Aileen Wuornos was a ticking time bomb. The question was, how long would it be before she exploded? Aileen's only sense of calmness came in the form of Tyria Moore, a hotel maid she met at a Daytona Beach gay bar. The two became a couple and moved in together, where Aileen would support them both with her earnings as a prostitute. But when that started not to be enough to keep her girlfriend happy, Aileen sought other means of making money: robbery and murder. Her first victim was 51-year-old Richard Mallory, an electronics store owner and convicted rapist who Aileen claimed she killed in self-defense for trying to rape her when she solicited him. On November 30th, 1989, she shot Mallory several times and hid his body in a wooded area where he was discovered on December 13th of that year. Her next victim was David Spears, a 40-year-old construction worker in Winter Garden, Florida. She shot him 6 times, and his body was discovered naked along the Florida State Road in Citrus County, Florida on June 6, 1990. Next was Charles Carskadden, a 40-year-old part-time rodeo worker. He was shot 9 times, and his body was discovered on June 6, 1990, in Pasco County, Florida. Next was Peter Sims, a retired merchant seaman. On July 4, 1990, his car was found in Orange Springs, Florida, where not only did witnesses claim to see both Aileen Wuornos and Tyria Moore leaving it, but it was where police found their first crucial piece of evidence, a bloody palm print on the interior door handle. His body, however, was never found. Next was Troy Burris, a 50-year-old sausage salesman from Ocala, Florida. He was reported missing on July 31st, 1990, but on August 4th, 1990, the police found his body in a wooded area in Marion County. He had been shot twice. Her next victim, Charles Humphreys, a 56-year-old retired U.S. Air Force major, former state investigator, and former chief of police. He was discovered on September 12, 1990, in Marion County, Florida, shot 6 times in the head and torso. And lastly, there was Walter Gino Antonio, a 62-year-old trucker who was found on November 19, 1990, near a remote logging road in Dixie County, Florida, nearly naked and shot 4 times. It's said to believe that Aileen Wuornos solicited each of these men with the promise of sex, led them to a secluded area where her true motive was then revealed, to rob and kill these men. Why? Maybe so there wouldn't be any witnesses. Or maybe, after being used and abused by horrible men in her life, she saw them as nothing more than evil people in her eyes. Robbing and killing these men, however, would be her downfall, because many of the items she stole for them, she ended up pawning. But to do so at that time required a signature and a fingerprint. When police discovered these items, they took Aileen's fingerprint in, where they eventually matched it to those found in some of the victims' cars. However, by this time, Aileen was nowhere to be found, because not only was she living out on the streets, but her and Tyria had separated. It wouldn't be until January 9, 1991, where police finally would find and capture Aileen Wuornos at a biker bar in Volusia County, Florida, called The Last Resort, where one of their undercover agents had saw her and was able to solicit her and get her out of the bar, where police apprehended her. The next day in Scranton, Pennsylvania, police had located Tyria Moore and struck a deal with her from immunity from prosecution, but that was only if she could get a confession from Aileen for the murder of the 7 men. It worked, because on January 16, 1991, Aileen Wuornos confessed to the murders. Between January of 1992 through February of 1993, Aileen Wuornos went to trial for 6 of the 7 murders, where in all, she received the death penalty in each one of them. She was incarcerated at the Florida Department of Correction BCI Death Row for Women, where she tried to appeal her death sentences until 2001. They were all denied until finally Aileen accepted her fate, saying this: "I killed those men, robbed them as cold as ice, and I'd do it again too. There's no chance in keeping me alive or anything, because I'd kill again. I have hate crawling through my system. I'm so sick of hearing this 'she's crazy' stuff. I've been evaluated so many times. I'm competent, sane, and I'm telling the truth. I'm one who seriously hates human life and would kill again." Aileen Wuornos was executed by lethal injection at 9:47 a.m. on October 9, 2002, making her the 10th woman in the United States to be put to death. After her death, many books and documentaries were made about her, including a movie called Monster, in which she was played by Charlize Theron. Though Aileen Wuornos had a horrible upbringing, in the end, she made her own choices in life. Unfortunately, those choices cost her her own.
My dear daughter.